Right, so there's a bunch of new features coming out in terms of interacting with AI or an LLM inside of your IDE, and that's great. I'm excited about those features. But the reality is you have to have practical examples of how you can use these, and it'd be especially good if I could share some examples of, I think, where these really shine. So I'm going to start working on some use cases beyond just the bells and whistles of how fast they can run and what they can do with some examples. I want to take some scenarios that you might find in reality and show you how you can improve upon reading that code or working with that code simply by using some of these AI integrated features. All right, so to start this out, I've got a function here. All too often, I find this to be the case where people were cute about the variable names, or for some reason, they thought it was important to save space and save characters by not actually explaining the variables. And so you could imagine if you needed to edit this function, the first thing you probably have to do is just figure out what the variables are, get them renamed so you can actually understand it, and then you could go about making changes. So this is a great starting point here. If I just select this, first off, I'm going to run this to see what the values are before we make changes. This as a crude test to make sure it doesn't break anything. And now I'm going to select all of this, Control Enter here, Inline Assistant. And I want it to rewrite the variable names to be meaningful. All right, I'm just going to accept that because the diff can sometimes be hard to read. All right, there you go. And just as a crude check here, select everything, run it again, make sure the values are the same. The values are the same. I could clear this if I want and run that again. And there you go. So it looks like at least functionally, it's still correct for this one example. And then if you come up here and you take a look at the variable names, definitely much more interesting to see loan years instead of it was Y before, or total payments instead of TP, or the monthly interest rate versus MR. It even did a good job of giving the units here with the annual interest rate. It didn't just say interest rate, whereas previously that was just R, so you wouldn't know, is that annual or is it monthly or what is it? And you can see this computes the monthly payment, the total amount, and then it returns both of those values here. So this is a good example of something you could do if you come across code that is difficult to understand because of variable names or otherwise. Ask it to rewrite the code. You don't have to check that code in and use that forever. If anything, you could just use it to make your changes, and then you could always ask it to refactor back to the old variable names when you're done.